Good morning, good evening, and good night. My name is Kadek Putra Ananta from the group Yasir 252, Iki class. And today I'm going to explain my part from the project, which is the playlist applications, playlist web applications. Okay, now we start from the playlist app JSX. So in the playlist app JSX, there's the main components. So it displays some sidebar navigations, header top bar, and then there's a playlist form for adding or editing, and then there's the main content of the playlist, and also there's a floating button for adding a new playlist. So moving on, there's the imports in here. Mm. It has a React and use state for it's from the basic React tools. And then there is the use playlist, a custom hook to managing the playlist data and the actions such as fetching or get, and then there's an edit or maybe delete or etc. etc. And then the other components is the app the app UI part. Mhm. And then moving on, we're going to the states via use stated. So there is a sidebar open to toggle the sidebar open or closed. And then there's the active nav, current menu selections in the sidebar. It shows you it's a navbar for showing the song, the movies, educations, others, and all. So we set the default from all, and then there is a this use playlist hook the destructing, and then the hook manages the data fetch and the actions. The data is such as a playlist, loading, show form, and as there is a editing playlist and the form data. And for the data actions, it is a fetch playlist, reset form, handle edit, handle submit, handle input change, and delete playlist. Then there is a filter logic. It depends on the sidebar menu. Here, the filters, the songs, for the songs, the music will goes to the songs too, and then the video into into the movies, and the educations into the educations, and the others into the others. And then there's a even handless. The hand of refresh is to refresh the playlist data. There's any the error or maybe uh, a new created playlist data, so it can be refreshed on that. And then there is a handle app playlist, a toggle the playlist from visibility. Mm. And then there's the return JSX. The div class is the Minha screen. Mm. It's a full screen app background for the UI, the UI structure. And then here there's a sidebar, and there's a passes sidebar state and navigation setup. And then there's the header of the UI in here. Okay, as you can see, it receives some refresh and add the playlist to the handler. And there is a playlist form too in here. The class name is Flex1 Overflow Auto P6. It handles the playlist form for editing and create the playlist. And the playlist grid for displaying the playlist filtered by the genre. And then there's a floating button at the ends. All right, I think that's it for the playlist app. Now moving on to the playlist form. So first, there's the import in here. Import genres such as the song, the music, others, etc., etc. And then there's a functional component declaration. This declares a functional React component called playlist form. Mm. And then there is a conditional rendering. If show form return null. So if show form is false, this components return null. So meaning that nothing will render on the screen. Okay, now here there's a main form container, the outer wrapper for the form. So using a Tailwind CSS styles, we implementing the dark background, padding, margin, and border. And then there's the here the style of the Tailwind CSS. It handles the input changes, the URL for the form in here, the thumbnail URL. Also, there's a placeholder for uh for the user if there's a confused what what they have to fill. And yeah, it the playlist name is required in here. This is all the same style from the Tailwind CSS that we made. And yeah, that's pretty much it from this playlist form. It handles the playlist UI form for creating and editing the playlist data. Okay, we're moving on the AP, APGS. Mm. Okay, from the start, there is the import sections. There is the two constant from the file name constant.js. From the constant, it named index it inside of the constants. There's an index.js. There's the IP base and group ID. The group ID is 36. Yeah. Our groups. First, there's the class API service. It's all IP related. The functions such as get, create, update, and delete. It is reusable. Mhm. And then there's the method of the fetch playlist. It's to get the playlist data from the server. So here there is a calling the IP endpoint using the fetch, which is the get method, and then there's a checking the error. And then and then there's a handling the different possible AP structures, because the backend might send the data in a different format or directly as an array. And then there is a map age playlist to a standard shape. No matter how the backend sends the data, the front end gets a predictable format. And then there's the method of the create playlist in here. It sends a new playlist to the IP using the post the post request. And this converts, and this is the convert JS object into the form data. The converts form inputs into the form data for file upload or text fields. And then there's the post to the form to AP. Hold on. And then there's handle the uh handle the post if the fail. There's the response. And then we go back to the method. There's a method for that playlist in here. Uh, it is the it is to update an existing playlist, like editing the name or maybe editing the URL, the file, the name of the playlist. So we fetch the ID from the from for the update of the playlists. And then there's a methods delete playlist ID. So it is functional to delete the existing playlist from their ID for their from their ID. So here we send the delete with the ID of the playlist. It is also handles the error as is usual, and if it's successful, it's return if returns true. Then export cons IP service to the new IP service. Export a single instance, single return of the IP service to be imported and used in on the others file. Yeah, for the implementation, maybe import IP service from IP, and I think that's it for the RPGS. It is mainly for for the sections of the IP, whether it's a get, create, update, or delete. It's all in here. The method of it. And then we moving on to the use playlist JS. Okay, from the start of the use playlist JS, there's the import sections, such as the React hooks, use state, use effect for handling some of the component state and side effect. And then there's the API service, contains some of the API calls for the playlist, such a get, create, update, and etc. etc. And then there's the initial form data for the default of empty state in the playlist form. And now we're moving on the use playlist custom hook declaration. So it's to define some custom hook that manage all the logic related to the playlist data and the UI. And then there's the state declaration. The state declaration in here. The playlist is for the store the list of the playlist, and then the loading indicator flag. Loading is for loading indicator flag, and then there's show form to flag to show or hide the playlist form. And there's the editing playlist stores the playlist being edited. And then there's the form data to fill the form of the playlist that you want to create it. And then there is a message. In the last there is a message stores a loud message whether it's success or not. And then there's a show message functions in here. It display a message success or error for a 5 seconds. And there's a fetch playlist functions in here. Fetches the playlist from the server, the update state, and shows some status messages. And then there's a create playlist functions in here. Handles creating a new playlist, validate the input, send into the API, and reloads the list, the reload the list of the playlist that we created. And then there's the update playlist functions in here. It's overall the same, but it handle updating and existing playlists, refreshing the playlist after success. So it will refresh it and refetching on the data. Oh wait, sorry. Then oh, hold on. Then there's a set is loading. It is setting the loading if rather the playlist is updated successfully, or rather the error for the same as the functions the create playlist in here. It's also it's the same functions for the delete playlist too. The structures, it's just the messages. But if but this delete playlist is still using the Windows confirm for validating the deleting the playlist. We haven't made the UI for the delete playlist, so maybe in the next future we'll be adding the UI for it. And then there's the reset form functions in here. The reset form data and hides the form after the submission or cancellations. And then there's a handle edit in here. Populate the form with the selected playlist data for editing and shows the form. The default of the Gandra is music in here we set. And then handle the submit the form, depending the whether you are creating a new playlist or updating the existing one for existing playlist. And then there's the handle input change. It handles the input change in the form and updates the state form data. And then there's the use effect. It fetches a playlist automatically when the component mounts on it. And then there's a return value of it. Make the variables and functions accessible to component that use this hook. I think that's it for my part. Maybe I will show you to demonstrate the UI works, the web applications that we made, that our group made. Okay, so here are the UI of the web application playlist, our groups. Here there's a group 36, and there's the floating button, the top navbar in here. There's the sidebar in here too, with all the sections of the genres. And then there's the playlist in here. If we click the add playlist, it will exist the form for uh, creating, rather it's creating or updating the playlist in here. If you want to update the playlist, maybe in here you can. Oh wait, sorry. Maybe you can click this and then update the descriptions, and it always refreshing the data from the server to refresh the playlist of the grid. Okay, and also you can refresh in here too. And the dashboard, you can minimize the dashboard and yeah, like this. So the UI is working pretty well, and the videos, yeah, the videos will eventually reaching the to the YouTube links sources. So let me try one here, for example. Yep, yep, it's really work, and it opened a new tab too. Yeah. So I think that's it from me, and thank you for listening. And that's it.